The university's annual charity gala was held in the grand ballroom of the Lot Hotel, 40 floors above Seoul, where the city spread below like a circuit board lit from within. Students arrived in rented suits and borrowed dresses, dizzy with the occasion, taking photographs in front of every reflective surface. The air smelled like cologne applied too generously, and the particular anxiety of people pretending they belonged somewhere. Seo-yeon wore a simple navy dress she'd altered herself, the hem restitched by hand, the neckline adjusted with the focused patience of someone who'd learned that presentation mattered even when resources didn't. She stood near the window with a glass of sparkling water, watching the room with the quiet observational energy of someone who was never fully off the clock. If you're enjoying the story so far, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more amazing stories. Ji-hoon had told her he might be late. He hadn't told her why. She'd nodded and said that was fine and moved on, because Seo-yeon did not chase explanations people weren't offering. He'd watched her accept it and felt something tighten in his chest that he'd been carefully not examining. He was late because his grandfather had called at 6:15. "The car will be there at 7, the old man had said, in the tone he used for things already decided. "I'm attending as the primary sponsor. The foundation is making the announcement tonight." "I'm already going," Ji-hoon said, "as a student." A pause. "You'll be introduced, Ji-hoon." "Grandfather." 12 weeks, you said." The old man's voice was quiet but exact. "It's been 11 weeks, 3 days. The board requires a public confirmation of succession before the fiscal year closes. Tonight is efficient." Another pause, longer. "It's time." Ji-hoon had stood in his small rented apartment, unremarkable, deliberately so. A single shelf of books, a desk, a window overlooking a parking structure, and said nothing for a long moment. "She'll be there," he said finally. His grandfather was quiet. "There's someone at the university," Ji-hoon said. "She doesn't know who I am. He stopped. "She matters." "Then tell her yourself, tonight before the announcement." It was the most generous thing the old man had said to him in years. Ji-hoon had hung up and stared at the wall for 3 minutes, and then changed into the clothes his grandfather's assistant had sent in a garment bag 2 weeks ago, still in the plastic, still tagged. He arrived at the hotel at 7:43. The ballroom was full. He moved through the edge of the crowd, scanning. A string quartet played something that nobody was listening to. Servers moved with practiced invisibility. At the far side of the room, near the floor-to-ceiling windows, he saw the navy dress. She was talking to another journalism student, a boy named Park something, gesturing while she spoke, the way she did when she was making a point she'd already structured in her head. She hadn't seen Ji-hoon yet. He was 12 feet away when the lights on the stage shifted. A microphone. A university official leaning forward with the expression of someone about to deliver something important. "Ladies and gentlemen, we are honored to announce that this evening's primary sponsor and benefactor of the new Journalism Media Center is the Kang Group Foundation. Representing the foundation tonight, Chairman Kang Sung-woo and..." Ji-hoon stopped walking. His grandson and the designated successor to the Kang Group chairmanship, Kang Ji-hoon. The room turned. Not all at once. In a wave, heads rotating from the stage to the crowd as people searched for the name, and then landing on him, and then the wave completing its motion as recognition moved through the space like something physical. He watched it happen. Watched the professor who'd marked him absent twice suddenly straighten. Watched the boy in expensive sneakers from the first day go very still. Watched Minna, standing near the center of the room in a red gown, go through 3 distinct expressions in under 2 seconds: confusion, comprehension, and then something that was almost grief. Then he found her. Seo-yeon hadn't moved. She was standing exactly where she'd been, glass of sparkling water still in her hand, looking at him with an expression he'd never seen on her face before. Not anger, Not shock. Something quieter and therefore worse. The particular look of someone reorganizing everything they thought they knew about a person, watching the structure shift and trying to identify what was now true. He took a step toward her. She took a step back. Not dramatic, just one step, but it stopped him completely. On the stage, his grandfather was speaking. His voice carried across the room, measured, authoritative, the voice of a man who'd spent 60 years making rooms listen. Ji-hoon heard none of it. "Seo-yeon," he said, low enough that only she could hear. Her jaw was set. Her eyes were bright in a way that had nothing to do with the chandelier above them. "The bench," she said, barely above a whisper. "The library, the bus stop, the ramen," she stopped herself, swallowed. "Was any of it?" "All of it," he said, "every single part." "Then why?" "Because I needed," he exhaled. "Because in my entire life I have never once met a person who didn't know my name first, who didn't adjust themselves the second they understood what I was worth." He looked at her steadily. "I needed to know what it felt like, to be known as just a person. And then I met you and I couldn't." His voice dropped. "I couldn't end it." Her eyes moved across his face, reading him the way she read everything, quickly, carefully, with the trained instinct of someone who'd learned to distinguish truth from performance. "I have to go," she said. "Seo-yeon." But she was already moving, setting the glass down on the nearest surface with the controlled steadiness of someone not allowing themselves to break in public. She collected her coat from the rack near the exit with the same deliberate calm, pushed through the door. Ji-hoon stood in the middle of the ballroom while the room buzzed and his grandfather shook hands on the stage, and a server offered him a glass of something he didn't take. Minna appeared at his elbow, her red gown, her recalibrated expression now performing an approximation of warmth that hadn't been there 6 hours ago. "Kang Ji-hoon," she said, as though trying the name in a new register. "You should have said something we could have." "No," he said quietly, not looking at her. "We couldn't have." He left her standing there and walked to where Seo-yeon had set down her glass. He picked it up, looked at the faint fingerprints on the surface. Then he went to find his grandfather. The weeks that followed were the loudest silence of his life. He took the chairmanship preparation meetings. He sat across conference tables from men his grandfather's age who addressed him with a deference that felt like a costume he hadn't agreed to wear. He read reports, signed documents, attended dinners where everyone laughed at the right moments. He did all of it with the professional competence that had been engineered into him since childhood. At night he read Seo-yeon's published work. She'd graduated 2 weeks after the gala and joined the investigative desk at Hanguk Daily, one of the country's 3 major newspapers, as a junior reporter. Her byline appeared first on a piece about wage theft in logistics companies, precise and furious, and documented to a standard that made her editor run it without a single cut. Then a series on illegal subcontracting in the construction sector. Then a long investigation into falsified environmental reports tied to a real estate development in Incheon. He read every word. She was extraordinary. He'd known that. But watching her work in public, watching the mind he'd seen moving quietly across library notebooks now operating at full volume, it was something else entirely. He did not contact her. He had no right to, not yet. She needed to find her own footing in the world she'd been working toward her entire life without the complication of him in it. He understood this the way he understood most things about her, intuitively, without needing it explained. Then the documents arrived. Anonymous, delivered through a legal intermediary to his private office on a Tuesday morning. A USB drive and a single printed note. "Your house is burning. The man holding the match works on the 14th floor." Ji-hoon plugged in the drive. He spent 4 hours reading what was on it. When he finished, he sat back in his chair and looked at the ceiling of the office that had belonged to his father, and before that his grandfather, and stared at the scale of what someone had been building inside Kang Group for 15 years. The falsified contracts, the laundered subsidiaries, the land acquisitions tied to bribed municipal officials, the quiet payments to people whose silence had been purchased so efficiently that even the internal audit team had missed it. His hands were completely still on the desk. He thought about his grandfather's voice on the phone the night of the gala. It's time. He thought about a journalism student who told him, the very first week they'd met, that she wanted to expose the stories people spent money to keep buried. He opened a new encrypted email account. He typed a single line, "I have something you need to see." He sent it to the anonymous tip address listed on the Hanguk Daily Investigative Desk's public page. Then he waited. 3 words, "Who are you?" Ji-hoon stared at the screen for a long time. The office was dark except for the monitor's glow, the city visible through the floor-to-ceiling windows behind him. Seoul spread out like something endless, indifferent, beautiful. He typed back, "Someone who wants the same thing you do." Another wait, 12 minutes this time. "Send the files." He sent everything. What followed was 6 weeks of the most precise professional choreography of his life. He fed documents through the encrypted channel in careful sequence, organized, cross-referenced, annotated with enough internal context to make them irrefutable. Whoever was on the other end received each package and responded only with follow-up questions, sharp and specific, the kind that came from someone who knew exactly what they were building toward. The questions got sharper every week. And then one Tuesday, a question came that stopped him cold. The payments to municipal councilors in Gyeonggi-do. There are 3 names redacted in the audit trail. Can you confirm whether one of them is Choi Byung-suk? Ji-hoon sat very still. Choi Byung-suk, Min-ah's father, senior executive vice president of Kang Group's infrastructure division, 17-year company veteran, his grandfather's golf partner on alternate Sundays. He typed, "Where did you get that name?" "I have sources you don't. Can you confirm?" He went back through the files, cross-referenced 3 subsidiaries, 2 shell company registrations, a series of payments labeled as consulting fees that were nothing of the kind. He typed, "Confirmed, but he's not the architect, he's a conduit." A long pause, longer than usual. "Then who is?" Ji-hoon had been asking himself the same question for 6 weeks. He had pieces. He had patterns. He had a shape emerging from the data that pointed somewhere he hadn't wanted to look. He typed a name. Director Han Seo-yeon, 31 years with Kang Group, head of strategic development. The man who delivered the eulogy at Ji-hoon's father's funeral with tears that had seemed entirely genuine. The man his grandfather called the spine of this company. He sent the name and then sat in the dark and waited. "I need to meet you." His fingers hovered above the keyboard. "That's not possible. Someone is following me. My apartment was searched last week. I lost 2 months of backup files. A pause, then they know I'm close. If you have what I think you have, we need to move before they move first. I'm not asking for your identity. I'm asking for a meeting, neutral location, 1 hour." Ji-hoon stood up, walked to the window, looked at the city. Then he typed an address and a time. The cafe was small and unremarkable, the kind of place in Mapogu that served coffee that was fine and had no ambient music and attracted nobody interesting, which was exactly why he'd chosen it. He arrived 20 minutes early and sat facing the door with his back to the wall, a habit he developed without noticing at some point in the last year. At 7:03 the door opened. He'd prepared himself. He told himself it didn't matter. He constructed the moment in his head with the disciplined rationality he applied to everything. None of it helped. Han Seo-yeon walked through the door in a gray coat, a canvas bag over one shoulder, her hair down for once, and stopped when she saw him. Not a dramatic stop, Just the small physical interruption of a person whose body receives information before their mind has processed it. A long moment. She crossed the cafe and sat down across from him. She set her bag on the table. She looked at him the way she looked at everything, directly, without flinching, reading. "How long?" she asked. 6 weeks. Before that, her voice was steady. "How long did you know it might be me?" "The questions," he said, "the way you organize the follow-ups, the specific sequencing." He paused. "I knew by week 2. And you kept sending." "Yes." She looked at the table, then back at him. "Why?" "Because you're the best person for this, because the story is true and it deserves the best person." He held her gaze. "And because I trust you, even now, especially now." Something moved through her expression, complicated and fast, and then carefully contained. "Han Seo-yeon," she said. "Yes." "He knows I'm investigating." "I know. I've had people watching your building since the break-in." He said it without apology, factually, because she deserved facts. "The staged traffic accident 2 weeks ago." Her eyes sharpened. "How do you know about that?" "Because the driver was hired through a subsidiary 2 degrees removed from Han Seo-yeon's personal investment vehicle. I traced it the night it happened." A pause. "You were never going to be hurt. My team was on it before the car moved. But that was the moment I knew we were out of time." She was quiet for a moment, not shaken, but absorbing, stacking information into the architecture of her story with the focused speed he'd always admired. "He's going to run," she said. "Friday, private flight to Singapore. I have the booking confirmation." He slid a folder across the table. "It's all there, everything, organized for publication. You don't need me any more after today." She didn't open the folder. She was looking at him. "Ji-hoon." "Yeah." "Why are you doing this? Genuinely, your family's company." "My grandfather built something real," he said. "For 40 years he built something that employed thousands of people and did actual work in the world. Han Seo-yeon spent 15 years rotting it from the inside and using other people as the visible face of it so that if it ever collapsed, the blame would distribute everywhere except to him." His voice was quiet but absolute. "I'm not protecting a corrupt institution. I'm protecting what the institution was supposed to be." She looked at him for a long time. "Okay," she said. "Okay. I'm publishing Friday morning, before the flight." She pulled the folder toward her and opened it. Her eyes moved fast across the first page, then slowed, then stopped at something near the bottom. She turned the page, then another. Her jaw tightened slightly, the way it did when she was reading something that confirmed her worst suspicion. "This is enough." "It's more than enough." She closed the folder. Outside, the street was doing its ordinary evening things: a couple walking a dog, a delivery driver double parking, a child dragging behind a tired parent. The world unaware of itself, which was most of the time. "I'm sorry," Ji-hoon said. She looked at him. "For the bench. For every conversation where I let you be honest with me and gave you almost nothing back." He didn't look away. "You gave me something I didn't know how to ask for, and I protected myself instead of being worthy of it. I'm sorry." The cafe was quiet. Someone at the counter steamed milk. A spoon clinked against a cup. "You were scared," she said. "Yes." "So was I." She said it simply, like it cost her nothing, which meant it cost her something. "I knew something was wrong with the picture. I told myself I was imagining it." A small pause. "I wasn't imagining it." "No." "But you were also real," she said. "That part, the bench and the library and the bus stop, that was real." "Every single part," he said. The same answer as before. She looked at him for a long, quiet moment. Then she did something small. She moved her hand across the table and set it near his. Not a gesture, just a placement, just proximity offered without demand. He looked down at her hand. Then he turned his own over. The story broke at 6:15 Friday morning. Han Yi-won's car was stopped at Gimpo Airport at 7:40 by financial crimes investigators. He was photographed in the arrivals terminal in a gray suit, his face caught between disbelief and the particular collapse of a man who'd spent 15 years believing he was the smartest person in every room. He was neither. By noon, Kang Group stock had stabilized, not crashed, as the market had feared, but stabilized, because Ji-hoon had spent 48 hours preparing a transparent public statement that his grandfather, to his considerable credit, delivered in full without softening a single line. The old man stood before the cameras with the stiffness of someone carrying enormous weight and did not once look for an exit. Choi Byung-suk resigned and cooperated fully with investigators. His daughter did not make a statement, but 3 weeks later, Seo-yeon received a message, brief, plainly written, no performance in it. I treated you badly because I was taught that other people's limits were mine to exploit. I'm trying to unlearn that. I don't expect anything from you. Seo-yeon read it twice. Then she typed back, I know, good luck. She meant it. The journalism scholarship was announced 6 months later, established in the name of Han Seo-yeon, Seo-yeon's father, factory worker, husband, the man who'd waited outside a restaurant with a thermos of barley tea because he understood that showing up was its own language. The foundation's first class was 12 students, 12 young people from low-income families who wanted to write, to film, to investigate, to tell the stories the world needed told and couldn't afford to pay someone to bury. On the day of the announcement, Ji-hoon found Seo-yeon standing alone near the window of the foundation's small office, looking at the framed photograph they'd placed on the wall. Her father, young and unguarded, laughing at something outside the frame. He stood beside her. He would have liked you, she said. I hope so. He liked people who showed up. She glanced at him sideways. Eventually. He laughed, a real one, unguarded, the kind he'd become less afraid of in the past year. She smiled with her whole face, the way she did when nobody was performing anything. 1 year later. The campus cafeteria at Yonsei was loud with lunchtime, trays and voices, and the institutional smell of rice and soup. Near the far wall, a freshman girl sat alone at the end of a table. First week. Wrong city. Not enough money for the meal plan, eating the single bread roll she'd bought at the convenience store on the way in, textbook open, pretending to read. Seo-yeon appeared beside her without announcement. She set down a container, barley rice and braised tofu, her mother's recipe, and a pair of spare chopsticks, and moved the chopsticks to the girl's side without a word, without waiting for thanks, without making it an occasion. The girl looked up, startled. Eat, Seo-yeon said simply. You can't think when you're hungry. And then she walked away toward the table by the window where Ji-hoon was already seated, already watching, a quiet expression on his face that had no name in any language except the one two people developed together over time. She sat down across from him. Same bench, he said. Same bench, she said. And outside, through the wide cafeteria windows, the ginkgo trees were turning gold, unhurried, indifferent to everything except the season, which had come around again as seasons do, as things do, when you've been patient enough to wait for them. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to the channel. Your support helps us bring you more amazing stories. Subscribe and turn on your notifications so you never miss any story.